and it's great to be able to do this today. Thank you for asking me, Andy. So it was 17 weeks ago, right back at the beginning of lockdown, I preached from a passage from Ezekiel chapter 37 verses 1 to 14. Now, reading back over my sermon, I realised actually I must have been in quite a lot of shock, I think, at the time. I was in shock for a number of reasons. In shock because I was being expected to homeschool my 3 children and work full-time at the same time. I was being asked and challenged to get on board with a whole load of technology. I mean, to be honest, I had never heard of Zoom before this thing. And I was also in shock because I had no idea how long this was going to last. Now, all these weeks ago, I preached on Zoom for the very first time, like I say, on this passage. And these verses in Ezekiel, they talk of the Spirit of God, the breath of God breathing on dry bones to restore life and hope. Now, I preached that the church body, they needed to realise that in these uncertain and really, to be honest, troubling times, we needed to allow the breath of God to breathe on us. And it was really crucial in this time that we not only had and held on to hope for ourselves, but that we would have hope for other people too, and to speak that hope out. Because it is really in exactly these moments, in these moments of crisis, where we see God's promise of hope in all of its abundance. Now, looking back over the past 17 weeks, I have seen this hope, and I'm sure you have too, in so many beautiful ways. Now, in our communities, in our churches, in our families, with our friends, and also, I'm not going to lie, it's pretty miraculous, the patience that he gave me in homeschooling. So I am really grateful for that too. And I saw that hope there. Now, I'm sure if we were able to gather today, we would be able to share just beautiful stories of hope. But we would have also been able to share very easily stories of difficult times, of really sad times. Now, with our buildings closing, church going online, I mean, life changing to something just completely unimaginable in just a matter of days. I posed this question at that point 17 weeks ago. I said, what do we mean by church then? Now, what we found out, which was few, I have to say, is that church is not just a building. Church doesn't just stop when we physically stop meeting. And I believe that this passage actually in Ezekiel was speaking to us 17 weeks ago and is speaking to us today. And not just speaking to us here in Bath very specifically, but is speaking to Christian communities right across the world. You know, perhaps God is saying that listening to sermons, attending church services, creating rotas, I don't know, my list could go on. Perhaps he's saying to us that this is never going to be enough for revival. This is all good stuff, but this is never going to be enough, and we need to look further. And we need God's breath. We need his Holy Spirit to breathe on us. We need to place prayer as a priority, and we need to be seeking God in absolutely every single area, every single place, every area of our lives, and be seeking that breath to breathe on us, to breathe on life, to breathe on hope. Now, I've spent the last couple of weeks actually back in St Michael's in our building and daily, and I have had just an absolute blast. I've had an absolute privilege of praying with people, just chatting to people, smiling at people. Mostly actually not part of our Sunday congregation, but they're so happy to be back in a church building. And I'm reminded once again that God is in our buildings too. Now, my firm belief is that we should not be tempted to act on that temptation to go back to the way things were. But neither should we be tempted to believe that the answer to everything, to spreading the gospel, is purely online. It's a nonsense. That cannot be all it is. I believe we should be getting more creative, not retreating back to the comfort of what we've already always done and we've always known. Instead, I just think we should be getting inspired by our Creator, our wonderfully creative God, who always wants to make things new. Now, thinking back to Ezekiel then, just as we finish, let's be open. Let's be open today to God's Spirit to breathe on us. Let's ask him to breathe his breath on our dry bones today. Let's ask him to release our creativity. Rather than dampen it, let's release it. And let's just be really expectant today and for all of time. Just expectant to what God is doing around us. And let's just join in. Let's join into that new life and that hope. And join in with what our Creator, our creative God, is doing today.